Look at the next leadership forum.
Hi, thank you for joining me on another episode of my content on leadership development. Today, I want us to look at 10 fundamental steps that you need to take to have a good, adequate planning process. Step 7 is where you inspect the procurement that has been made, or you inspect the resources that has been allocated. Many organizations don't do this really, and many leaders take this aspect for granted because they assume that by meeting with the stakeholders, they expect everybody to do what is expected of them. It's what I call the blind trust. You just trust that people will do what is expected of them. Unfortunately, things don't work that way. When you allocate resources to people, it is important that you still inspect what you have allocated. If you are into production, for instance, if your organization is into production, before the production begins, make sure you inspect your materials. Inspect the procured items to be sure that it is the color, it is the shape, it is the size. If you are into building, inspect the drawings. Don't assume that the drawing is correct, then you just mobilize everybody to site. No, inspect the drawing. Check out every aspect of the building, every aspect of electrical drawing, structural drawing, whatever drawings that you have. Make sure that you go through it to ensure that they are all reflecting what exactly the project is all about. If you require specifications to be followed, inspect what has been procured if it meets the specification that is required. Inspect the quality. Don't start your project and realize that maybe you needed 10 trailers and only 8 is available, or you needed 10 items that would be used for production and then you realize that only 8 was supplied. What happens to the remaining 2? If those items are very important, it may affect your productivity, it may affect the result that you get, it may affect the time of completion, it may affect a whole lot of things. So inspect the quantity, inspect everything that you have requested for, if that is what has been supplied. Inspect the brand. Don't just look at an item and say it is good just because you are seeing it. What if it's not the brand that you are actually expecting? So check out the brand if it is the brand that will give you the required result. Then inspect placement. When you are carrying out a project and an item that is very heavy is placed in a wrong place, to move that item from where it is placed to the right place that it's supposed to be placed may cost a lot. In fact, it may delay the entire project. So if you are supposed to spend 3 days on a particular phase of the project, you might end up spending 3 months because you are either looking for a crane to move those items that has been placed wrongly, or a large number of people to come around if there's no crane. So inspect placement. The 8th step about planning is to execute. Execution is very important. If you have gone through the 1st step to the 7th step, you don't need to waste time. When you are in production, delay can be dangerous because the item that you have procured, if you don't use them, some of them might have one problem or the other, and that may begin to affect your budget. So you execute. You don't need to delay. If you are building, you build. If you are in construction, you start constructing. If you are in baking, you start baking. Whatever it is that you are trying to achieve. If it is an event, then you go ahead. You send out the IV, send out the invitations, announce it, let the people know. Go ahead with your event. Go ahead with the production. Go ahead with cutting and sewing of your dresses. If you are drilling, you drill. If you are moving items from one location to another, then you go ahead. And if you are printing, you print. Whatever it is that is your goal and objective, this is the stage where you execute them. And as you are executing, you also evaluate performance. You can evaluate every unit of activity that is being produced. The ninth stage is presentation. After you have completed your project or you have completed the product, you need to carry out your presentation. For instance, in the movie industry, they have what they call movie premiere, where after they must have shot a movie, they present it to the people so that they can see what they have, and then they can show the audience what they've been doing for either weeks, months, or for years. So presentation and distribution is what happened in stage 9. If your product requires that you don't need to do any formal presentation like it's done in the movies, all you might need to do is just to present your product to your distributors. It all depends on your industry. Some carry out exhibition. They create an avenue for people to come and exhibit their product. You just need to figure out how is it done in your own industry. So you need to carry out all of these steps as part of your planning processes. The last one is the validation stage, which is also known as the feedback stage. The feedback stage is where you really don't have control over. It is important that you have a coping mechanism over the feedback that you get. Usually, you don't have control over this step because it is for the people who have received your project, who have received your product, to determine if what you've done is what they are happy about. If they like your product, then they will give you the validation that is required. If they don't, they will give you a feedback to tell you how they feel about your product, about your project, or about your idea. So you need to have a feedback mechanism in place where you will hear from people what exactly their opinion about your program, about your project, about your idea, or about your organization. Have all of this in place while you are carrying out your planning processes. Why is this important? It's important because you need to be prepared for the customer, the people who are going to be the end user of your product. You need to be prepared to get whatever they need to ensure that you satisfy them. Some products after being completed might need to be adjusted, and you might not know what adjustment to make if you don't know what is the opinion of the people about the project or the product. So have a feedback mechanism in place. If your product is satisfactory, what do you do to improve on it? How do you get this across to more people for them to patronize you? And if you get a negative feedback, you need to also be prepared for what do you do to satisfy your customers or your client. Do you need to fix the product? Do you need to fix an aspect of the product? Or do you need to do another one entirely? So all of these need to be planned along with your planning process from the beginning. So have feedback mechanism in place and a plan that you will need to ensure that whatever feedback you get, you have a plan in place to respond, to ensure that the receiver, who are your customers or your client, are happy with your product, with your project, or are happy with whatever goal and objective that you have set for the company, for the organization, for the team, or for the people that you are leading in any capacity. These 10 fundamental steps will help us to achieve our goals and our objectives, regardless of the industry where we practice our leadership responsibilities. Thank you very much for your time. Until I come your way next time, always remember that we rise by helping others. Thank you.